And welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Safety Systems, East Tennessee's leaders in security and safety systems. He's practicing social distancing right now. They're working in gloves and bringing the disinfectant wipes with them. Plus, if you want your security system tested, they'll do that for free right now. They'll test anybody's system that needs it tested, and they will upgrade your system at a discounted price right now. Safety Systems. Do me a favor, give a call to VFL JJ Surlis and tell them the Sports Source sent you. Safety Systems. All right. Now, we are going to be joined here by another VFL, our own Sports Source guy, Will Overstreet. Will, how are things going at your house?
Doing very well. It's just a little bit, it's getting a little bit boring. Everybody's getting a little bit antsy, but we're making it.
Yeah, the walls are starting to close in at times. Thanks.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. Before we get into the UT thing, and that's why I wanted to talk with you. I mean, you're a guy who went through the draft day process. I wanted to also ask you, though, about the idea, and we touched on it a little bit here. There's talk that you can quarantine teams, put them in hotels, bring their family with them, which brings up the question of what about guys who aren't married? Who can they have in their rooms? But sequestering all these people, keeping them together. As a former NFL player, how would your Atlanta Falcons teammates have reacted to being locked down? Even with money on the line, would they have been okay with that?
I think that'd be tough to do. I just don't think it's practical for a lot of reasons. I mean, you're now talking about not just could there be player drama, but now you've tightly packed families in that may not get along at some point in time, and now you've got drama on the team because of that. You've also got the factor of you've got coaches, you've got trainers, you've got equipment people that would also have to be sequestered, and some of those people may be in the high risk category. So I mean, now you're putting the more risk on that. So it's just a lot of moving parts. Not only that, but what happens when one guy gets it? Now you have to quarantine a whole group of people, but what if they just played a game? Now you've got a whole nother team that's now sequestered even longer and can't play. How long does it take you before one guy basically shuts down the year?
Yeah, and I have a feeling you'd need guards at the door to keep some of these guys from sneaking out, too. The idea, you're going to make your money. Okay, great. I can see that as a motivator, a big one. At the same time, boys will be boys. I have a feeling you'd have somebody that said, all right, I can't take hotel room 22B anymore. I'm going down to X to get out of here. And then you run into problems.
Right. Yeah, and a guy gets in his car. You're going to follow him around to see where he goes?
Yeah.
If he wants to go to the grocery store, are you going to say, okay, well, wear a mask, do all these things? If he doesn't do those things, what's your practice from then on? I just, it's a lot of, you almost have to have a dictatorship to kind of have this kind of control to put it at a safe enough level that you're saying this is actually going to work out.
Well, that'll make Roger Goodell happy. He wants to be a dictator. But
he'll do wonders for his reputation.
Yes. I've always thought the first sports back will be the smaller sports and non-contact sports. I think basketball, there's a greater chance of doing this for basketball than there is for football. Even as good as the NFL is and as targeted as they want to be, I just think it'll be a lot easier to pull off for a basketball or a baseball than it will be for football. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but I think it's a tough road to hoe for football.
Yeah, the nature of the sport non-contact, social distancing is not the nature of football.
Yeah. All right, let's get to why I really dialed you up today. I'm going to give you the quick scouting report from NFL.com. They have their scouts. I don't know that they're scouts or people just write for that website, but they say it's their scouting report on NFL.com. They grade all these players and they tell you what kind of career they think they're going to have, whether or not they'll be drafted, where they may be. I'm going to run through these. You just quickly tell me, agree, disagree on each of these UT players, all right? The first one is Darrell Taylor. NFL.com scouting report. He will be a starter within 2 years in the NFL. He's the highest grade for any Tennessee athlete coming out. Your thoughts on he will be a starter in 2 years?
Well, he's definitely got the most potential to be the guy. But, the real question here that I have to ask is, get answered is, can he learn the secondary move? Can he learn how to use his hands? Because right now, he's been a guy that just has a quick first step, and that's it. And that's kind of hard to say. How does he become a starter if he can't add all the other things to the package and be a complete player? I think he has a good chance if he can learn those things, take the coaching, and get better. But in his current state, I have doubts about whether he could be a starter.
Okay. Next man up is interesting to me because most of the mock drafts are showing Jauan Jennings being taken somewhere. I've seen him as high as third, but for the most part, it's in that 4 to 7 round range. And they're not showing Marquez Callaway in most of these mock drafts. However, NFL.com has Callaway as their second best vol, and they have him picked as a 5th or 6th round pick, eventually being a backup receiver or a special teamer on a team. Your thoughts on what they say about Marquez Callaway being the second vol off the board?
Yeah, he's got some speed. He's got some things there that you can see where a team might say, hey, this guy in a late round is worth a chance of what can our coaches do, what can our weight room do to improve him and make him a better player and fit in. But, you've also seen a lot of games where a cornerback for the other team kind of took him out of the game. He kind of disappeared. So I question because, the NFL game, those DBs, it's man press, right? They're lining up on you, and they're going to be physical. I would question his physicality and whether they go back and watch that tape and say, can he get off that kind of block or kind of defense and make a play? I think if he gets drafted, it is going to be 6th or 7th round is your best case scenario. And, that's going to be on a lot of potential of what they think they can do. I don't know with what he's been able to do as far as the college game, especially when the cornerback gets up tight on him and uses his hands, if they're really going to think he's a guy that can do better than that.
All right. And then the guy I just mentioned, they rank or they grade Jauan Jennings and Daniel Bituli with the exact same score of 5.4, which people at home, if you want to go read NFL.com scouting reports, you can figure out what that means. But the basic gist is they see Bituli and Jennings as priority undrafted free agents, the guys that get the first phone calls after the draft ends, but not during the draft. Your thoughts on Jennings and Bituli's chances?
So here's the thing. I think somebody's going to fall in love with Jennings, and there's a time and the place in the draft that they're going to say, we want a competitive guy. We think he can play on special teams for sure. So, that's a value add. And we want to see what he can do. So I think that same kind of range of the 6th and 7th round is where a guy like Jennings is probably going to be able to be picked up because I think a coaching staff is going to like him when he talks to them. I think they're going to like his intensity. And I think that's one of the things that they're really going to look at and say, hey, we want to try this guy as a part of our team and see what can happen. And you can't argue with the production. The physicality, him getting off blocks, him being able to break things, break off from people. I think the only thing they're questioning is, speed-wise, athleticism-wise, can this guy really compete? But I think the tenacity, his attitude, I think an NFL team, a head coach, a GM, are going to be at a place in this draft and they're going to say, I'm willing to take a risk on that guy.
Okay, and then very quickly on Daniel Bituli, who also, he's got the injury history that teams may be taking into consideration, but they list him as a priority undrafted free agent. Your thoughts on Bituli?
I think leaning more towards this, I think Bituli does go undrafted, and I think he is the priority undrafted. I think you mentioned it, the history of injury, and I think the speed of the 40 time. I think they're going to look at that and say, okay, this is a guy we want to get on because he's the type of guy that could make a team from the free agency by the way he plays and how smart he's been playing. And they're going to want him, but they're going to also be sitting there going, maybe there's a guy more talented we're going to take a little bit first that has a little bit more speed, maybe from a smaller college, that we're going to try first as a draft pick. But we're going to bring this guy in and definitely want him to be on the team. And, we think he might have a shot at making the team.
Very good. Hey, Will, we got to move on this end. Just to mention here, Dominic Wood-Anderson, they said he has a chance to show up at an NFL training camp. But that's a conversation for another day because who knows what training camp's going to be. So do the undrafted guys have the type of shot they would have had in the past? But Will Overstreet, hey, thanks for doing this, and we will see you back here. I'm sure now that I've lured you in, I'll be pestering you over the phone like this for weeks to come. So thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thanks, John. Talk
All
to you
right.
later.
All right, very good. VFL Will Overstreet, kind enough to join us from his home today. When we come back, you heard Will's take on some of these players. Josh and David are going to rank their pro prospects next. All 6 of the Volunteers. That's coming up next on The Sports Source.